Faith communities are a tremendous resource to help parents raise healthy children.
But they cannot replace the role of parents in children's lives.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
I'm so very glad you've joined us for today's program. I'm looking forward to this discussion in particular. You've probably been here before, and so I'll say welcome back. For those of you who might be new to the program, we hope you enjoy today's discussion and experience. Before we get started, I'd like for our panelists to introduce themselves and say a little bit about what they do. So let's begin with the gentleman to my right.
I'm Bishop Michael Olson, and I am the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
Hi, I'm Tom Plumley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, and I serve as senior minister at First Christian Church, Fort Worth, Texas.
I'm Rabbi Dan Levin. I serve as senior rabbi at Temple Bethel in Boca Raton, Florida.
I'm Andrea Luxton. I'm president of Andrews University in Berrien Springs, Michigan, which is affiliated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Hi, I'm Carl Troval. I'm the Richard J. Dinda Professor of Lutheran Identity and Mission at Concordia University in Austin, Texas.
And my name is Mel Robeck. I'm Senior Professor of Church History and Ecumenics and Special Assistant to the President for Ecumenical Relations at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California. I am also an ordained minister with the Assemblies of God.
And I'm Jerry Lutz, and I'm very happy to be your host and moderator today for the American Religious Town Hall meeting. We've heard from our panelists. They've introduced themselves. I think we're ready for our discussion today. Are you? Yes. All right, let's get started. Raising children with faith obviously gives them many spiritual benefits. But a recent study by Harvard University has also shown that children with a religious upbringing benefit physically and mentally too, especially as young adults. The 2018 study conducted by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health found that children who attended weekly religious services or had an active prayer life were more positive and had greater life satisfaction when they reached their 20s. The study observes that these young adults had a tendency to choose a healthier lifestyle, avoid drinking, smoking, drug abuse, and sexual promiscuity. The 14-year study revealed some other impressive findings. At least 18% of regular churchgoers reported higher levels of happiness in their 20s than their non-religious peers. And more importantly, out of the same sample, 29% tended to join community causes, and a very impressive 33% stayed away from illicit drugs. These results are particularly encouraging at a time when the number of regular churchgoers seem to be in decline. Today, I'd like our panelists to consider these issues with these three questions in mind. How can this study help motivate parents who are struggling to get reluctant children to religious services, especially their teenagers? Another question. Should the physical and social benefits of living a faith-based life more overtly influence public policy on health care and education? Or would that cross the line of separation of church and state? Another question, does your church or synagogue have an early childhood religious education program? And if so, what are the benefits you are seeing? Well, that is our subject for today. We're going to go back to those who helped to begin the program. And Rabbi Levin, thank you so much for being here today. Can you please tell us some more of your thoughts on this subject?
Well, it's an honor to be here with everybody. I think the most important thing that religious communities can do is try to inspire young people to want to bring their families into religious communities, to provide them all of the benefits that religious life can afford, as you explained in your opening. We've found through so much different social research by great thinkers and researchers like Robert Putnam, Johann Hari, Ray Oldenburg, about the importance of community and the connectivity that we have in broader community and the social and emotional health that we all experience, not just our children. Connectivity is one of those things that leads to mental and spiritual health. Ray Oldenburg writes about the concept of third place, where home is the first place where we feel most secure. Second place is where we spend our days, either our work settings or our school environments for young people. But third place is that other place in the community where we matter, where we belong, where people know our names, and where we're taught the most important lessons sometimes that we don't learn in these other settings. And so one of the things that I try to encourage young parents to think about is you're going to do everything you can to make sure that your kid has a good education, that you grow their mind. And you do all kinds of things to make sure that your kids are good at sports or good at art or good at dance or a musical instrument. But what are you doing deliberately to make sure that your children have a moral education? What are you doing to really make sure that your kid's spirituality is developed? And you have to be just as intentional about that as you are about anything else in your child's development. In our congregation, we have an early learning center. We're blessed to have over 240 children in our program, and we deliberately built an infant care, child care program because we wanted to bring not just those children into the congregation at the first beginning of their lives, but we wanted to bring their parents in at a time when maybe they're not thinking about a religious community, but because they become part of the religious community through their children, they find that that spirituality impacts their lives in a deep and important ways.
All right, thank you very much. And then Bishop Olson, your thoughts, please.
I concur with everything the rabbi said, especially I think more than ever, I think that it's important when we are engaging our people as a faith community that we keep in mind their own relationship as a family, in the sense that instead of just doing faith education, faith formation for children alone, in a sense, to teach them and to have programs that involve the whole family, so that the only time they're hearing or experiencing church is not just simply on Sunday, but are also then talking and learning and sharing the rest of the week with their family, and then also at school and at work. I think that anything the faith community can do to build up the family, to help them to deal with the contingencies of family life that make families look so different today than in the past, is supportive. There's a temptation, I think, at times to have the church or the school do some of the basic, as you said, first place needs that take place in the home. And I think we need to do our best to help parents to make their home a safe place for their children to grow healthily. And we can do so by our faith and moral tradition that has been handed on to us.
All right, thank you very much. And Dr. Luxton, you're familiar with education in the secondary and tertiary. How about the early childhood? I know you've had exposure to that as well.
Some of that as well, yeah.
Yes.
This study is actually very interesting. At Andrews University, we've done some very similar studies, interestingly over a similar period of time, and the results have been identical to this. And we've done it among hundreds of university-level students each year. But the study says the same thing, that high-risk behavior is significantly lessened when you have individuals who throughout their childhood, teens, and even now are regular church attenders, regular prayer life, almost identical. Another interesting fact that came out of our study has been the value of family meals. That the increasing number of family meals that happen per week also is significant in reducing of at-risk behavior, which again speaks to the importance of that family community and a faith community. Of course, the challenge we have now in today's environment is that we talk about parents, but an increasing number of young people are dealing with families where there is only one parent. And that puts additional pressures on them. So I feel that our faith communities are the need to support parents in finding ways to ensure this, that young people are engaged with church, engaged with faith. I think it increases because the single parent out of the home more, you've got less influence happening there. How do we support them? certainly in our community, we do a lot with early childhood in multiple ways through our school system, but also through our church system. We also have family life divisions that are part of our organizational structure to work with families. So it's a real priority of ours. But on the individual level, I think still that sense of however we can reach out to parents and walk alongside them, because it's really difficult. And for a parent to have a 13, 14-year-old and say, yes, you're still going to go to church. I mean, it's got to be more than the parent just saying, just demanding. This is a whole community that needs to get behind this kind of investment in the children.
All right, thank you very much, Reverend Plumley.
Thank you. I begin my conversation with this subject by being astounded at some of the statistics that you quoted in your opening statement, Mr. Moderator. For instance, is it true that only 33% of religious kids stay away from illicit drugs? Yeah. And that's a higher percentage than other kids? Yeah. That's an amazing statistic to me.
According to the Harvard study.
Well, anyway, one of the things I want to bring in a conversation that we had some weeks ago about the religious component in being an educated person. And the need to have that. At that point, we were talking about whether it could be in the public schools or not. But today, I think we need to talk about religion has a part to play. Our congregations, whether you go to a temple, a synagogue, a church, whatever, our congregations have responsibilities to initiate our children into a whole range of subjects, familiarity with people and names and movements throughout history that are critical in those children becoming educated people. Mm-hmm. And so, folks, get your kids there, if only for that reason.
All right, thank you very much. Speaking of education, Dr. Trovall, you're involved in education.
Yeah.
And so what is your position on this?
Well, I mean, I've appreciated what everyone's had to say. I think the importance of family, the importance of the faith community, the importance of the state, too, and its public education system that supports families. I'm going to speak anecdotally from a class that I teach, and it's called Spirituality in the Workplace, which is really talking about how one brings one's spirituality into the second, is that the second place, the work? Mm-hmm. And I wanted students to do an interview of someone they saw as a spiritual leader who was in the business world, because it was a business class. And I had about 4 or 5 of the students say, can I interview my mom or my dad? And I said, well, are they involved in the business? Yeah, they run their own business. And I was hesitant, and I finally capitulated and said, okay, yeah, go ahead, you can do that. Those were some of the most astounding papers to read, was the deeply spiritual influence of these parents, how they, on their work life, on their spiritual life, on their ethics, on their values, and how they struggled with it. And it made me so appreciative of all the parents out there who are struggling to do that. And I think what the key is for me is that these parents are doing it genuinely. They're not taking their kids, I want my kids to be happy and not be on drugs, so I'm going to take them to church, which I don't know how effective that's going to be. I wonder what the correlation is here. It's spiritual people are going to talk about spiritual things, which are going to be, it's going to be caught by the kids, not just simply taught.
It's going back to community and a sense of identity and belonging. Yes, and I think these studies are pointing this out, and the anecdotes we're hearing today as well. Dr. Robeck, your thoughts on the subject?
Yeah, I've been thinking, I had the privilege of growing up in the home of 2 ministers. My mom and my dad were both licensed or ordained. And I cannot remember a time when I did not believe. I just simply cannot remember it. It happened so early. that I can remember at 4 or 5 years of age, me telling my Sunday school teacher that I already knew this, that I knew God and that we talked on a regular basis. So, I mean, it's like, it's hard for me to think beyond that. But I do know that, you know, when the proverb says to train up your child in a way he or she should go, that when they're old, they will not depart from it. I think that's well-intentioned. I'm not sure if it's always true. It's a proverb.
Yes.
It's a proverb, okay?
It's
And
not a promise, it's a proverb.
it's a proverb, not a promise. Yeah, and it is the case that people have free will and they make decisions. But I think the most significant thing, coming back to Dan's point, the home is a very significant place. And again, it's not just taught, it's also caught. And that requires modeling. Now, the problem with our contemporary homes is we don't do a whole lot of modeling. And on Sunday mornings or whatever day your worship day is, oftentimes we are caught with television. Everything's got sports on it on Sunday morning, you know. So the dad stays home and watches sports, and maybe the mom stays with them, and they send their children to Sunday school or whatever. Get them out of our hair for the moment. You know, it's that kind of an approach that really is devastating in many cases. And I think that what we need is people that will take their children to church. And sit with them and explain things as they go along and enter into recognizing that they have something to give. In the home, we found that you could bathe the day in prayer. When our kids got up, before they went to school, we had prayer with them. If we take a long trip, before we start, we have prayer. Every meal we had together until they left home. We had prayer before our meals. We encouraged them strongly, or we did pray with them before they went to bed, so that prayer becomes a part of it. And at the meal, I appreciated the fact that you brought that up. The meal becomes a very significant time for us. Any topic is on a possibility in our house. And you know, I was glad my wife was a nurse, because there were a lot of gross things that 4 boys would come up with. But the fact of the matter is, it was a time where we could read the Bible, we could talk. And you know, we never read more than 3 or 4 verses, or maybe a story. And we also had books for our little kids, so that they were published by the Lutherans. All these little Bible stories, and they could ask questions, and you know, for the littlest time. And every one of them then, I think, really has a sense of what Scripture is about, what church is about, and so forth. And I think they don't always go to church every Sunday, but every one of them is a committed person in terms of our religious community.
All right, thank you. Rabbi Levin.
I think that in the work that I've done with people who are struggling with recovery from addiction, they almost always tell the same story. And in the rooms, they call it a hole in the soul. That there's a missing connection, I'm missing meaning, I'm missing purpose. And so how do you fill that cavity? Well, they try to fill it with alcohol or a drug or some other kind of thing that they hope will help them to feel whole. And so what religious communities can offer is a much healthier alternative to find those senses of meaning and purpose and connection that people so always, you know, that become part of what people miss, that leads them down these darker paths. So we find that sometimes, Mel, what happens in our communities is that parents didn't grow up with 2 ministers in their house. Yeah, they don't have the tools to raise their kids with that kind of spirituality, and so they lean on the faith community to try to do that. But what we've done in our community is to try to create new models where parents and children learn together. We've created a new religious school model with family education, where some of it is kids and parents learning together. Sometimes we have the kids in one space and the adults in one space so they can have some adult education. And what was amazing is we just started this program, and the subscription for that was far more than we imagined. I think parents are healthy for these kinds of encounters.
You're describing an authentic religious lifestyle rather than just something to check off the list. I took my kid to church or to synagogue this week, and I've done my duty. You're talking consistency of lifestyle on a daily basis. And Bishop Olson, you recognize this, I'm sure.
It's integration of it as well. I mean, I think that, you know, I was just thinking the other day and stuff like, how do we learn to pray? You know, and to Dan's point, you know, and to Mel's point as well, is that, you know, hopefully our parents taught us to pray, or at least one of our parents did, or a godparent. But also we're dealing in a current situation where parents don't know how to pray and they want to learn how to pray. And I think the community, as Dan pointed out, has a responsibility and also a privilege of sharing that sense of wisdom from parents themselves as to how they've learned and how they've taught how to pray. And I think we need more prayer, real authentic prayer in our religious communities and in our community as a whole.
And Dr. Robeck, your name was called. Did you want to respond to the two-parent situation with the pastors?
No, I realize that my situation was quite unique, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, I think God does wake people's spiritual lives if they are open to that. And if
Okay.
there's a way to open them, I think that's a...
All right, thank you. That's all the time we have for this segment, but I just want to give you a chance to respond to that. We're going to have an important announcement just now, so please stand by. We're going to come back for our summations in just a moment.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Welcome back. I do look forward to hearing from you. Drop us a line, go to the website, see what is there, some great stuff. Send us an email, card, or a letter. Happy to hear from you and look forward to it. Let's go to our summations just now. Let's begin with Bishop Olson. You're first.
The family unit, whatever its composition, hands on a faith tradition by how they live it and most especially how they pray. The faith community can help families to do that and can also be strengthened as a community from what they learn from families.
Thank you very much. Now, Rabbi Levin.
If you want to be healthy, you have to be deliberate about how you maintain your health. You got to get yourself to the gym. You have to exercise regularly. And if you don't know how to exercise or how to do it in a right way, then you find yourself a trainer who will help you. And the same is true with your spiritual health as well. You cannot just assume that your children are going to have healthy spiritual lives unless you train them, unless you help them, unless you make sure that they do not just their work outside the home, but also their homework in the home. You need to do it with them, not for them. And hopefully, the more that you help them engage in their own spiritual practice, the healthier they will be, and so will you.
Good counsel. Thank you very much. Dr. Trovall.
I think I made a tremendous error early in my ministry by not asking those who were parents in my parish what I could do or what we as a community of faith could do to help them be better parents. I think I just made a bunch of assumptions. And so I guess I would appeal to all of you who are parents out there, or maybe grandparents, to go to your spiritual leaders in your churches and say, you know, it would be really helpful for parents in our community would be this, and to give them ideas, because I think all of us are deeply desirous of fostering and shaping faith in our communities of both parents and children.
Good suggestion. Dr. Robeck.
Yes, that's good advice from all of you. I also would say that there are people in the congregation who are really interested in children, interested in helping them to grow spiritually, interested in kind of calling them out and serving as mentors. I know in my own life, I had a couple of people that really spoke into my life along the way that were extremely helpful, that led me in certain directions. I also think that parents really need to tell their children their own story. How do they relate to God? What does that mean to them? Don't be afraid to give a testimony, if you would. And then find a way to introduce your children to God. I think families should take care of their own first. but then also alert the church to the needs that you have there that they can address specifically in terms of your children's spirituality.
Thank you for the insight and counsel. And Dr. Luxton.
I remember when I was teaching at the kind of secondary level, and we used to have parent-teacher conferences. And I think when I was young and naive as a teacher, I was quite stunned at the honesty of the parents, but often their feelings of inadequacy when they would come and speak about their children. And being as we were a Christian school, often that whole area would come up. And they were just desperately sometimes seeking to know how to do things better. And yet we know from another survey we take now at the university that the students list as number one on the spiritual influence in their life as their parent.
Wow.
So when you think about the parents' desire and a sense of inadequacy and that need, I think our greatest responsibility is to try and help that gap.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Reverend Plumley.
Thank you. I think far too frequently we're only teaching our kids that life is about how you get stimulated. And the only change in that comes when the parent finally gets so frustrated that they scream, "Get your face out of that screen. No more screen time." I think we have something to say to the world about prayer time as the place, the time in which the world can slow down. When you're a teenager or a preteen, and life is so unpredictable, this is the place that you can slow down and become calm and get away from some of that.
Thank you.
How do we teach our kids to be the people that can ask the question, why I exist?
Good question, great counsel. We've heard some great advice and counsel around this table today. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. There's really not much more to be said except for take the advice and counsel. Talk with someone about this, your pastor, your priest, your rabbi. Lots of things we can do to help our children in their development. For now, the charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America, we believe in civil and religious freedom. Not only in theory, but in reality. So now, friends, until next week at the same time and over this very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.